You guys are in for a treat today. Bill Kauffman returns to the show. We're talking about his book, America First, Its History, Culture, and Politics. This book has been reissued just recently with a brand new preface and epilogue. It's just a tremendous book. America First, of course, recalls, and this is why Trump got in trouble for using the term, recalls the America First Committee of the Second World War. These are the most demonized anti-war people, maybe in all of human history. I don't know if they're. I'm being serious. I can't think of anybody. So give us the other side of the story. There are a lot of people who don't know people like JFK belong to it.
As far as I can tell, the first time America First was used as a political slogan was in 1916. It was one of the slogans of Woodrow Wilson, along with "He kept us out of war." Of course, after Wilson's reelected in 1916, he plunges us into war. But, America First was commonly used in the 1920s by everyone from conservatives like Warren Harding to progressives like Hiram Johnson. It simply meant we should not go abroad in search of dragons to slay. We should tend to our own constitutional republic rather than venturing abroad. And as you say, this brings us up to 1940-41. The America First Committee was born in September 1940 at Yale Law School. Its founders included Kingman Brewster, later president of Yale, Robert D. Stewart Jr., who was the heir to the Quaker Oats family and who later served as U.S. ambassador to Norway, Sergeant Shriver, later head of the Peace Corps, Kennedy in-law, McGovern's running mate in 1972, Potter Stewart, who was Supreme Court Justice. It had 800 or 850,000 members, depending on the source. So it was by far the largest anti-war group in American history. Its financial base, it was not like all funded by George Soros or Bill Gates. I mean, its financial base was broad. It was mostly Midwestern manufacturers. Sterling Morton of Morton Salt, Jay Hormel of the Hormel Meatpacking, the Quaker Oats people. It was as American as apple pie and Bob Dylan and tax revolts and Geronimo. I mean, it was deeply dyed in the American grain, and it spoke for the overwhelming number of Americans. Even into the fall of 1941, opinion polls showed that 80% of Americans were opposed to armed intervention in the European war. Now, if you ask, are you in favor of aid short of war, then it's closer to 50-50 or a slight majority opposed to aid short of war. Essentially what happened is that in political disputes, one side sometimes demonizes, vilifies the other side. FDR administration, some of FDR's worst hatchet men, people like Harold Ickes, would call the America Firsters pro-Nazi in the way that people in the Gulf Wars called those of us who were against the war in Iraq pro-Hussein, pro-Saddam. And usually, like after a war, like after the First World War, there's this stepping back and reconsidering and thinking, geez, we kind of lost our heads. And in fact, these people who were against the First World War, like Gene Debs, they were really wrong. They should be released from prison. They were in the American tradition of dissent. I think that happened after Vietnam, although it was messier. And if you look at the careers, I just mentioned the founders of the committee, they all had fantastic careers according to the standards of the American establishment. They knew the America First Committee was fine. It was a middle American anti-war group. But those people have almost all died out now. And so it's, when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And so you have these smears by these ahistorical slanderers. It's remarkable. Yeah, you mentioned JFK. JFK was not active in it, but he sent the committee, I think it was a check for $100, saying, what you people are doing is essential and vital.
Yeah.
It's remarkable, the mendacity of the anti-America First assault. And Trump actually picked it up, actually kind of by mistake. The funny thing is, when Pat Buchanan had written his book, A Republic Not an Empire, in 1999, he was put through the ringer. It was a kind of non-interventionist reinterpretation of American foreign diplomatic history, and suggested maybe we should have stayed out of that war, taking the same side as, JFK and Sergeant Shriver and those people. And the usual smears are thrown at him. One of the guys who smeared him was Donald Trump, actually.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, who was a contender or a stalking horse in the Reform Party nomination race of 2000. And Trump, I forget the exact, he said something like, he's a Hitler lover or some idiotic.
Yeah, he's a Hitler lover and an anti-Semite, yeah.
Yeah. And then you fast forward, 17 years, I think it was March or so of 2016, Trump's being interviewed by the New York Times, and he's laying out his platform. And one of the reporters said, well, it sounds like you're America First. His response was something like, well, look, I'm not an isolationist, but yeah, America First, that sounds good. So, I mean, it was not really a conscious adoption of this term on Trump's part.
Right.
But he's shown that it's not toxic. You know, Buchanan used the phrase, and before Buchanan, actually Doug Wilder, who was the first black governor of Virginia, and he was going to run for president in 1992, Democratic primaries. In 1991, his slogan was "Put America First." Let's kind of stay out of wars and repave roads or whatever. And he was very sternly lectured by the New York Times editorialists that you can never use this phrase.
Yeah.
Well, the one good thing Trump has done is that he's detoxified the phrase. I mean, he's used it, and people respond to it. But the average guy in Butte, Montana, or Anniston, Alabama, or Oklahoma City is not sitting around aching to intervene in Syria. I mean, what I commonly hear around here, I live in rural America, is, look, why don't we stay out and tend to our own business? I think that message has tremendous popular appeal, and to the extent that Trump taps into it, it really resounds, I think.
For America, and for America first always. America first.
Well, also, what's the alternative to America First? America 7th? America 13th? I mean, I think you should turn it around that way and say, well, what number would you like me to assign to America to make you happy? And I'll do it. I mean, that would be a great Trump response, but unfortunately...
It would be. I draw a parallel in the book between him and William Randolph Hearst. In the First and Second World Wars, he and his papers actually opposed these wars. Certainly not on pacifist grounds. He was not a pacifist. He believed in kind of heavily armed neutrality. This is a line from Hearst. We want big Americans in a big America, guarded by a big Navy, fearing nobody, bullying nobody, insulted by nobody, and sitting in peace and honor, ringed with their 100 ships of battle, ready and able to face the world in the just struggle. I mean, to me, that sounds very Trumpian, all this bigness nonsense, and since I'm an advocate of the little America, I would be on exactly the opposite side. But, he wants this huge army, well-armed, the most beautifully funded army in the world, as Trump has said, and yet he's not going to use it, except, I assume, in extreme provocation. So, I mean, there is a strain in the America First Committee. There were military people who wanted a big military buildup at the time, but non-intervention in foreign wars, just to guard our coastlines. And now Trump obviously goes well beyond our coastlines. He's not really part of the America First tradition, but he's an interesting figure, and we do have to give him his due. I mean, destroying the Bush family, what greater prize could he have given us?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm all alone pointing out this merit of his.
Yeah.
I guess I must have disliked the Bush family a lot more than some of my listeners. I don't know what else to say here. But to me, that is a glorious thing.
Right, and interestingly, like Ron Paul back in 2008, Trump in 2016 went before an audience of South Carolina Republicans, denounced the Iraq War. Trump said that Bush lied us into it. I mean, there are good things about Trump.